You are listening to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss our RC adventures.
Welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss the ups and downs of the new RC Flyer. Join your hosts, Michael and Jay, as they take flight at the park. Now on with the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast. I'm Michael from Arizona, and with me always are my good friends.
Jay from the hills of Texas.
And AK Mike in Texas.
And we are excited. Good news today. See, if you watched our video last time, you'd see that I had a little bit of a O2 on, and I'm off of that for the daytime use, still recovering from that. But I'm feeling much better today, sound much better. I'm happy to be out. The doctor has kind of started wanting me to resume my daily physical activities and giving me kind of that, get spread out. So I'm very excited because by next week we have the Arizona Electric Festival, and
True.
I am definitely going to be there. Actually, yep,
Yay.
definitely going to be there. So, and we have some sponsors that are going to be there too. So why don't we give them a shout? Eric Haddad, I think, from 3D Aero Ventures.
3D Aero Ventures.
He's going to be there, and I talked to him, and
maybe we could do like a barbershop thing of that with
that'd be
him.
kind of cool. Yeah.
And then we'll just record it that way.
That's pretty cool. We could do that.
Yeah.
He did mention, though, that if you're interested in getting some of the 3D downloadable 3D prints for his airplanes, don't forget when you check out to type in the word Park Flyer, and then you'll get our discount. So go out and see him. If you're going to be at the Arizona Electric Festival, he's going to have a booth with the 3D printing, and I think he's actually giving away, I don't know if I should tell that, but I think he's actually giving away one of his mini Park Flyers. So,
All right.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought he was giving that to me.
he could have, yeah, Well,
All right, maybe I'm being selfish. I'm sorry, I didn't understand. I misunderstood.
Possibly.
Yeah, possibly. But I don't know. He might, work a deal where you can get the file and then you can print your own. See, so that's more satisfying, I think.
That's right.
Yeah. And then also, the one I haven't figured out if he's going to be there, A Power Batteries. You can use our code PFPC10. Just go to rcbatteriesusa.com and type in the PFPC10. And you can get your A Power batteries, which are fabulous. We'll have some out there at the Electric Festival. I know Mike has some. And,
I do.
Yep. And hopefully he'll be out there. We could buy some more from him. So,
Hey, Mike, so did Eric say that, what planes he was going to bring out?
He did not.
He's going to be doing some demos, hopefully?
He said, not giving too much away, but he said, I have been working with Shannon.
Good.
Directly.
Okay, great.
So I know he and Shannon have been talking. I know he's got a vendor booth out here. He's real excited about, coming out and seeing us. We're definitely going to have him on the show while he's there. But I have a suspicion, just having talked to Shannon before and kind of seeing how he runs things, that if there is an opportunity for Eric to go out and fly a 3D built airplane, it will happen. So. I know.
Well, and I think that Eric probably was smart. I mean, he knows us well enough now. If he tells us secrets, he'd have to shoot us all to not be able to get the secrets to come out.
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
Very fair. So, the good news is that he will be there, and I don't know if he's bringing the new Chipmunk or not, but I noticed on his email that he sent me that he had a attachment that had a picture of it's kind of that 3D rendering of that Chipmunk. So. That was pretty cool. I think he's got a couple maybe surprises. I don't know. He's always stirring that pot, so you never know what he's going to bring out. So
True.
Right. So I will settle for, if he's not going to give me the prize that I thought about, to settle for just flying one of his planes.
Well, there you go. You might be able to do that. We'll see. So.
And if I crash it,
yeah, we could see how quickly you can repair one of those planes.
Right.
That's right.
We can talk about that on the show.
Well, I will tell you that he was asking me about logistics, for where he was going to be in the vendor booth versus where we are versus where we stay and that kind of thing. And he did mention I have a trailer with planes. That was plural.
Plural with a Z.
With a Z.
Plane.
So
with a Z.
I'm hopefully he's got more than just one, and it'll be an exciting time. So it'll be really good to see him and actually everybody at the Electric Festival. If you weren't planning on attending and you're listening to us or watching us on YouTube, please make an effort to come out. I know this COVID thing has thrown everybody in a kind of a tizzy.
Loop.
Yeah, it has. It's put everybody in this
a barrel roll.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But, I'm going to make an effort, and I know Shannon's done a bang-up job. We're still looking at, a good raffle. We're still looking at, a bunch of flyers that are signed up, good vendors coming out. I think Horizon Hobby's going to be there again. Eric will be out there with 3D Air Ventures. I think House of Balsa might be out there. A couple other people that he mentioned. So it still sounds like the vendors, want to participate, and I'm excited to see if Horizon brings out any new stuff as well. So it'll be good. I think there'll be a lot.
We should have made Park Flyer podcast masks.
We should have done
an
that.
N95 mask, and then the drape mask, and a couple of a shield thing.
Yeah, well, I do have an announcement.
Maybe stickers. For the shield.
We got new T-shirts.
What?
Yeah, so we will have T-shirts out there this year, and I ordered a few more. So hopefully, we'll have new ones. They're going to be blue and orange this year, not blue, not yellow. So you won't get attacked.
Oh yeah, thank you.
That yellow was really cool the first year, but Mike did not have a good time. So.
Oh, no, it's fine. In fact, I didn't know about it until everybody goes, dude, look at it. And I looked around, I was like, oh, all these bugs are flying around. But while I was flying, none of them flew in front of me.
Be specific, because that was not in Arizona.
No, it was not in
Arizona. No, did I say Arizona? I'm sorry. I meant to say.
But people who are listening to us don't realize we're talking about the Arizona show.
South Carolina or North Carolina, yeah.
North Carolina is where that
North Carolina,
that's right.
Yeah, that was crazy. And I was flying I think I was flying my fundraiser, too, at the time.
You were. So it wasn't like you were flying a little slow fly.
People were like, "Is he going to crash that?" Because those bugs are all over the place. And I turned around, I was like, "What are you guys talking about?" Oh, there's all these bugs.
They weren't hurting you though. They just liked
the
color
weren't.
yellow.
They were just flying around. Yeah, they were just flying around.
Yeah, we opted against it. The guy that does the shirts for me, I have to give a shout out to Robert Kramer. He owns a company called Master Designs, and he did the artwork for our T-shirts. And you can find him at masterdesigns.com. Or send him an email and tell him you like the shirts at robert@masterdesigns.com. But he did a really good job, and we this year he's like, let's do something with a multicolor, and we kind of tried to figure out if yellow was a good color, but the blue and orange I think is going to look really good. So just look for us in the blue and the orange shirts, and we'll be out there. So yeah, I should have had a make mask, but that was only 3 of them, and when you order. You kind of got to do a bigger order. Yeah, you have to do bulk. So this is a better way to do it, and then we'll throw 1 or 2 in for the giveaway as well. So
hey, so AZ Mike, I think, or AK Mike, I think we're gonna have to start calling you Bambi from now on.
Bambi?
Yeah, because that
I'm not sure I understand.
Remember with the little rabbit, and he said, "Well, I'm going to call you." He was a flower. Bambi called him a flower because
Oh, I get it now. You're making a connection with flower.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No, let's not.
We can just call him Flower because all the bugs were all over him, right?
No, let's not.
Or the Bug Man. We'll call him the Bug Man.
The bug.
No, let's not. I'm not right. I'm going to stick with AK Mike. I think.
Stick with AK? Okay, that's cool. So.
You can call me Humorous Wires for this podcast.
Humorous Wires.
Humorous Wires. What is that?
Yeah, you got to tell us.
I have no idea. It just showed up.
Oh, it's the one that just comes up when you.
And I thought, you know what? I like that.
Oh, all right. Okay, so if
you had a story behind it.
Yeah, so if you're listening, head over to YouTube. We actually have a YouTube channel, and we actually videotape these now, and you can see the 3 of us. And then we use a company called Squadcast, and it asks us when you go in the green room, which is the place to get your stuff set up before you jump into the meeting or into the podcast, it asks you for a name. And so whoever's hosting usually gets the parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com. That's Jay hosting tonight. And then, so for Mike and I, we get to go in there and put whatever name we want. Well, it always suggests a name for you. And some of them are very humorous. I mean, I've found some are a little on the risque side. I'm like, I don't know if I want, that's not really family friendly, but, it's not really bad. They don't have any bad words or anything, but some of them.
Is this like an R-rated ad lib or
something?
Yeah,
it's not really even R-rated. It's just one of those things that's kind of suggestive. You're kind of like, hey, wait a minute. But most of them are very humorous. Since I'm a jet pilot, I always put, high flyer in there, but Mike's Humorous Wires today. He has that as his little handle, I guess, or your name. It's supposed to be your name.
Yeah, whatever. It's just an identifier.
I mean, people know who we are.
Yeah, I was thinking that you put that in there, and I was wondering.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
I did too. That's why I was like,
I would like to think that I'm that intelligent. I could come up with like a story that goes along with humorous wires. If you give me a few minutes, maybe I'll back up. We can replay this part.
No. I just figured, I came in late today, so I just figured you had something that you put that in there, and there's some story behind it.
I think it's a reference to my looks and the fact that I play with wires and stuff. I don't know.
I don't know. I just
you never know.
I figured it would be interesting, and it was going to be a good conversation piece.
Yeah. Sorry, I let you down there.
Yeah. Well, we'll catch you next time, I suppose. But
next time maybe.
Well, let's see. I have been sitting in rain for at least 4 days, so I have not been able to get out.
Well, good for you.
Fly. It is good for us. I actually got 3 inches of snow in Scottsdale, Arizona.
My gosh.
Wow.
How many people died in Arizona this weekend?
I know, right? Jay called me during the snowstorm and asked me if I was sequestered into the house because he didn't want me on the icy roads out. And I told him, no, I was out running an errand. I think I was getting gas at the time and to fill up the truck, and we did some other stuff. And
yeah, I figured over those 3 days, more people died from that than from COVID.
I think that snow doesn't even know what to do when it lands on the ground there. Like, not on the ground, but on the pavement. So it just goes, forget it. I'm melting. I'm done.
Yeah, very true.
Just everybody be losing their minds out there.
Yeah, right. That's very true.
Seeing that stuff.
But anyway, we so basically we got a little snow. I got 3 or 4 inches up where I live, and we did basically take a couple of photos and send it out to the people that said, hey, it does really snow up here. And you get a lot of people that drive from the valley that come up because they're like, where did you get all the snow in your car? They're like, oh, it's just up the road, in North Scottsdale. And they're like, oh, I got to go see it. So they'll drive up, take pictures. You can see the tracks going off. This one guy on the way home from getting gas, I live kind of out in the country, and so I was coming down, and we have these big washes. He literally drove down the wash because it's all covered in snow. He didn't know. It looked like a road. And he drove down it. And I told my wife, I was like, oh, my gosh, so we're going to have to go get the truck and pull that guy back out because – he's halfway up the wash. He doesn't understand that that's really deep sand, just a sandy wash, and he'll get stuck. But somebody must have helped him or told him don't go too far, in there. Or the snow was hard enough that, whatever. But, which I didn't tell you, I had to pull the Amazon guy out of a wash.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yep. So the Amazon truck, because they were delivering to the neighbor, right? And there's a wash that went across my property and into the neighbor's house, and there's a Y. So the wash crosses his driveway, and it was a female, and she made the turn, thinking that that's how you went to the house.
That's how you got to your house.
Yeah, that it was a big, not my house, my neighbor's house. That it was a big circle drive, and so she was cruising down through this thing and buried her truck all the way to the axles.
That sucks.
And anyway, I was kind of loading some stuff in my truck, and I look over, and there's this guy, and he's running back and forth. And normally you see the Amazon guy come in, drop your package, and boom, he's gone. But this guy kept coming in. He had like a little shovel, not like a shovel like you would think a shovel, but like something that you see in the bucket with your kid at the beach.
Right.
It's like this little plastic thing. And then he's grabbing wood, and then he's grabbing rocks, and I'm thinking, what in the world is this guy doing? I mean, I've never seen
building a shelter.
Yeah, exactly. And so I walked out, and I looked at him, and I said, "Are you stuck?" And he goes, "Yes." And I look at his truck, and I'm like, "How can you be stuck? You're sitting on the driveway." He goes, "Oh, not me, her." And I stepped around the truck and looked down, and she is literally probably 50 yards into this wash. Now, this wash is double the size of her van, right? I mean, it's wide, and it's deep. And I just started laughing. I was like, oh, my gosh, what made you think that this was the road? She goes, well, that's what the GPS said. I started laughing. I was like,
that's
yeah,
reasonable.
It's not a circle driveway. It's just a straight-in driveway. You just pull in, back right out. So she's facing one way. I've got this big tow rope because I have the mailman's gotten stuck. The FedEx guy got stuck. Everybody gets stuck in this wash. And so I have a four-wheel drive pickup truck. So I took the four-wheel drive over. I drove all the way back there. I put it in low drive, and I tied it around her, axle part underneath the car and put it on my hitch. And I said, okay, I need you to just put it into neutral, and then I'm going to back you out. So all I need you to do is hold the steering wheel straight because the truck is going to pull you regardless of what you're doing. I mean, you can drive all you want, but the sand is not going to let you go anywhere. Man, I stepped on that thing and just, 4-wheel drive, sand's going everywhere. It's like being at the sand dunes, and she's just back hanging on for dear life, just going for a ride. But it was whipping that van back and forth, and she's trying to correct, like she's driving. And I just was like, I started laughing so hard because could see her in the rearview mirror, moving that thing around, moving the
keeping it straight.
Yeah, trying to keep it straight. But, I was pulling her. Whichever way I was turning, the van would whip that direction because, by the time it got to the end. So anyway, I finally got her out, and she was parked on the driveway. And I said, okay, now I just need you to back straight up, right back out into the street, and you won't get stuck. And she was just frazzled. So the other driver basically emptied her truck and took all her deliveries for her and sent her home because he's like, yeah, man, she was crying, she's like, oh, I'm going to get fired, and I'm like, dude, you're not going to get fired. Trust me, the mailman was stuck here just a couple of weeks ago. If anybody getting in trouble, it's him. He's got a GPS
That's
tracker.
a tough gig.
So, yeah.
They work those guys hard. It's a tough gig.
Oh, they do. And they're, I appreciate it because I get a ton of packages. Tons of packages. I just got 4 or 5 of them today, so there you go.
Imagine that.
Yeah, who knows?
That's surprising, yeah.
Oh, and it's not surprising.
Yeah, that it was only 4 or 5.
Oh, it's surprising it was 4 or 5. Okay, that makes sense. I was going to say, wow, it's not surprising I get Amazon packages, but you're like, oh, yeah, you got so few. What is the problem?
Well, yeah. Are you okay, Mike? Yeah.
What happened? Well, it's the end of the month. My bank account was low.
Oh, I get it. Your wife is there.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
She's sitting
Say
across
no
the
more.
way there, so yeah, I gotta watch that.
It's kind of hard to say I'm holding these for Jay.
That's true.
I'm holding him for Jay. He's going to be here in a month. A couple more
exactly.
weeks. He's coming.
Well, today's episode is kind of I don't even know how to think about this episode. This is one of those things that we kind of have to try to stay on track here. But what happened while we were sleeping? The FAA came out with a new rule or new rules on our hobby, and it just seems that every time I turn around, there's something else that's coming out, and that is somewhat disturbing.
Yeah. What the big thing with this is I find it suspect that this year and last year they're releasing this stuff right at the end of the year.
Correct.
Right, and during a holiday period.
Right.
Yeah.
When the government hardly ever works is during the holiday period, right? If you wanted to get something done, oh, we're on vacation, or we're starting this session or summer session or this or that.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they pop this thing out, bing, and no small thing, 470 pages worth of regs and regulations.
It's an easy read, though. It's only like one word per page, right?
The senior citizen edition, right?
Okay,
Well, I
so
gotta understand
that's going to get me. Yeah, you guys are wanting to spin me up. I can tell because this is something that as I started reading this stuff, I had to stop for a second and think about. Okay, I'm going to give everybody the benefit of the doubt that whoever's doing what we're doing is at least been through high school.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And that they're going to read from a high school level, like senior in high school. And it's like you almost have to be a lawyer. So a lot of this are easier words. You don't use therefore and shall and may and the things that are critical in legal documents, but they still use wording that just makes you dizzy.
Sure.
And there's these are all true except for this, but this is true too, except for that.
Right.
And there's so like you have to have a drawing board to draw out all the exceptions and the minor modifications. Now, Jay, you read through this too. I'm looking at. I want to talk specifically about the remote ID stuff, but what did you get out of the stuff that you read?
Okay, so kind of like along the lines of what you were just talking about. The things that I found that were a little difficult about this read was just that some of the definitions, they weren't defined. And so for like an example of that, they talk about, you're supposed to have a spotter, or you're supposed to, keep visual range on this guy or keep it in line of sight, but they don't give any definitions of what that means, and depending on how they phrase it and what they're talking about two different things. and yet they're trying to make it sound like it's the same, but it's not.
Right.
And so that I found there was a couple of ambiguous things that were in there when they were talking about definitions of things. They were talking about concepts, but yet they're not giving the definitions.
Yeah, it kind of bums me out that they use the word drones to define all unmanned aircraft.
Aircraft, right.
Yeah, and they use the word drones, and they just pound away on drones.
Yeah, but they've done that from the very beginning, right? I mean, that
yeah, they have, but it's disappointing. It's disappointing because, quite frankly, all the non-FAA stuff that you see about drones in the media and whatever, almost always negative.
Yeah, that's true.
And so, in fact, you don't even see it unless it is negative in the media from that perspective. And so that's just, I think that's disturbing. I don't think they made a conscious choice to do it that way. It's just disappointing that they chose that. Sorry, and I kind of cut you off there, Jake. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, the good news about this, not to make this sound like it's total gloom and doom, at least this iteration is a lot better than what was put, with the stuff that was put out last year.
What's the improvement in your mind? What's one of the improvements?
Well, they give a little bit more definition as I was just complaining about their definitions, but they gave a little bit more definition as to what's going on with the remote ID. They cut out a lot of the stuff that was bad, what I considered was bad, where they were like, one of the things I can think off just the top of my head, like if you made your own drone, you weren't allowed to fly it according to the first draft that they had. If you made your own drone, you could not fly it according to what they were proposing. At least they took that stuff out. So
what is the rule if you make your own drone? And we're talking about airplanes here too.
Yeah, airplanes, drones. Well, you can do it now. You can make your own planes. You can fly them, and depending on the remote ID, they have whether you're going to fly it with a remote ID module, because it's not going to have the stuff built into it, right? So you can have a module, or you can fly in the FRIA areas. The FAA recommended sites. You can fly those things at those places.
To that end, I read in the remote ID document itself, remote ID final rule, it's called, it actually accepted home-built planes from even having a module.
Right. There was no whole bar, type of thing there in those places.
And it didn't matter if it was free or not. It just that it wasn't, because it was home-built, it was not required as long as it's not for commercial use. And that's the other thing I found confusing, because a lot of the wording and language here is for commercial operators. And so unless you understand the context of what you're reading, you might apply that to a recreational user when it's not applicable. And so that's confusing as well. They don't really separate out recreational and they're not actually separating it out from the FAA's remote ID thing. But typically, if it's created by a manufacturer, then it all those rules apply. But if you build a foam plane or you build your own plane, then it doesn't apply anymore. And also, they are grandfathering old planes too, evidently.
Ooh, thank goodness.
Yes. Right.
But that's today, right? I mean, I don't know if it's the final rule or if that's the way it is, but that's that's how I read it. Anyway, if someone disagrees, that's great to hear. But that's how I.
Well, from what I read too, they have, 18 months for manufacturers, to basically comply with this, and basically for us to comply with what after the manufacturers do their stuff, it's going to be, what do I have written down here? By 2023, then we have to be in compliance with a lot of the stuff that they have written. But but again, if we have homemade planes, that's not going to apply. Yes, that's true.
Well,
but I'm just saying
that's assuming that the remote ID technology is up and running well enough for us to actually use it, though. Because we still don't have.
I think that's why they're giving 18 months, right? Because they don't.
And when have you known anything to happen in 18 months?
Yeah, that's true. And there was some specific wording about not using ADS-B.
That's definitely
ADS, right, but they also said
all Wi-Fi related.
Right.
Yeah, so they also said that you can do it any other way. It's like open in terms of how you get it done.
Right.
But if you have a way to identify your plane, and there was like 4 pieces of information they wanted, or 3 or 4 pieces of information, if you can do it some other way, then they're at least willing to look at that. Like that's not
Right.
They're not trying to say you have to use ADS-B or some specific technology. They said specifically not ADS-B, but you can use whatever way you want. So I guess hand signals will work. I'm not really sure.
Smoke signals. I got a little fire pit out here with a blanket. My wife's going to give a poof, poof,
There was a reference to not flying over a person or a vehicle. So I can't fly at the field anymore because, I don't fly very well in the first place. I'm always flying over people and vehicles. So I guess I'll get spined every time I fly the plane because.
Well, the biggest part that and it's a worry, but not necessarily, because they seem to carve out, and I'm thankful for the AMA for doing that, right? They've put a lot of energy and effort into making this part, they're trying to work together with the FAA to say, hey, look, we've got all these members. They always comply. They fly at these FRIA areas, and we have sanctioned. And like I said, I was talking to some of the guys at my field, and we just dropped $80,000 on a new runway.
Yeah.
And now, they're going to come in and go, well, technically you can fly at 400 feet. And then all of a sudden we get closed in to where now
it's unusable.
Yeah. It's this area that we're in, even though it's been there for 100 years or 50, 75, whatever we just had the anniversary of, they've closed it in enough that it's just unusable at the time. And one of the board members and I were chatting, and he mentioned the fact that if he'd have known this was coming down the pipe the way it was, maybe it would have been better to look for a new field location rather than spending the money redoing the runway. I mean, we would only had to move another 2 miles down the road. It puts us further away from an airport, because we're within that 5 mile range. Well, 5 mile range cuts part of the field off. But
it makes you not have G airspace. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Yeah.
So.
Well, from what I understand, originally, in the preliminary edition of this thing, I thought it was that you could apply for a FRIA for your club or for this area, and then after 2 years, you couldn't apply for any more. So whatever had an application in 2 years, that was it.
Right.
And then basically they were going to just phase them out. So that nobody
have they removed it, Jay? Or are they
they removed that stuff from this this iteration that now you can apply. Schools can apply, trade schools, this, that. All these different places can apply for FRIAs.
That's good.
But they opened it up, and so let's say like where I fly, right? I could apply for a FRIA for that place, and then accordingly, let's say I'm going to have a fun fly out there. Even though it's not a club or whatever, but I put in for this application, and then let's say I'm going to have a fun fly with all you guys are going to come out. We're going to have a fun fly for like 2 days. We're going to have like 25 people out there flying or what have you. Well, since once you apply for the FRIA, and then if you were going to have an event or you decide, let's say it's a city and they have a park like Mike has out in Arizona. AZ Mike has out in Arizona, that little park that they have, and they decide they're going to fly. Then they can go ahead and, put out an application just like you would, I guess, for putting a NOTAM out.
Right.
And you say, hey, we're going to have this fun fly out, and we're going to be flying at 1,000 feet, or we're going to be flying, whatever. So therefore, during these 2 days, 2 or 3 days, we're going to be having this event. This is the type of stuff we're going to be flying, or we're going to be flying FPV, or we're going to be flying this, that, or the other thing. You put in, the specificity of what you're going to be doing.
Right.
Let it be known. And you should get permission to do it, So that's what I kind of got out of what I read. I don't know. I might have read that wrong. But.
No, that sounds familiar. I mean, I think you're right spot on. And it's very similar to what people do now when they hold contests or when they hold, like, I think this weekend or last weekend or whatever it was the Winter Warbirds here in Arizona. And of course, they had got all the permits and all that stuff, and they were able to have it. So I don't think that's going to change much. And back to your point about the FRIA and then phasing them out, there was a comment somebody mentioned that the comment was, if you phase all of these out, people are going to fly everywhere, right? Right now, if you keep the FRIA areas, you can control and say that's an area where you go fly. So you could have 50 or 100 people that would drive over there and fly in that area because it's legal. But once you phase it, there's no area.
Yeah.
All bets are off. People are you're going to have drones, planes,
more
whatever.
bandit flying than you've ever seen.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And that kind of makes sense with, I think we talked about this in the very beginning when I think last year.
Yeah.
And not to say that I'm a rule breaker or that I'm a freedom lover, being from Alaska, people up there don't tend to like to be told what to do.
Right.
But, they like to stay within the rules of the law. But the minute you start putting all those restrictions, like you said, onto people, they're trying to constrict what we can do. Right. It's just going to go through your fingers because, people are going to do it.
And then there's, how they're going to enforce that. This is unmandated stuff. So none of the police force gets money to do that stuff. Right. So all it does is provide them one more reason to be able to stop somebody, potentially search them, and do things that they, wouldn't necessarily have, been able to do in the past. It just gives them more ammunition to do those kind of things.
Right. So to me, it makes like Mike was saying. To me, it makes a lot of sense that you keep these areas and you allow people to do what they're doing, and then you don't squeeze them out.
Right.
And then you can have your control that you want to have over the folks, or at least keeping an idea. Keeping an idea. Because once again, that's my biggest problem but the thing with this is why are they doing? What is the end result? And, at first they were saying, well, stop terrorists because, if terrorists came in and we don't have the idea of their drone and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, what terrorist is going to put an idea on his drone to go fly, crash into the White House?
Yeah.
Who's going to?
They're going to circumvent that no matter what happens.
Right.
Are they going to do that? Put that on their RPG when they fire it at the truck? No. So,
death to you all.
so once again, you're talking about the law-abiding people.
Right.
Why would you have to put these requirements upon them? Now, once again, if you're doing it so that you can track these folks for safety, or to have some semblance of control to keep civilian traffic away from commercial traffic. Okay, well now, hey, that makes sense. And I think most people would want to comply with that.
Yeah.
But
except we still have the issue of you haven't really had a collision where it's created an issue. Right. I mean, so the other unintended consequence is if they phased out those things is they would lose their training ground for anybody who's going to fly all these super awesome commercial drones that are going to be in play. Of course, those are going to probably be AI driven at some point anyway. But for now, you have operators, I imagine, or at least people who are watching the trajectory of those things and have some degree of control. Can take over control at some point. You got to have a failsafe for that stuff. They can't just fly on their own. Without it, I wouldn't imagine.
And I understand, airspace quite probably more so than others, but there are going to be there's a big push for this commercial delivery system, which is Amazon, UPS, FedEx, those guys, because it's very expensive and it takes a lot of time to have a van driver that drives all over town delivering packages, and he's got to stay on a schedule. I know of several cases, lawsuit cases, where FedEx drivers have caused an accident because they were rushing to the next, place, and that cost the company hundreds of millions of dollars in legal fees and payouts and that kind of thing. So if you can get something remote that can a smaller package that can go deliver things, then that's a good thing on the business side, right? But you have
that's interesting though, Mike. You're talking about drones and stuff, and I think that's right. But simultaneously, they're building trucks that can drive themselves.
Agreed.
So then it becomes. I mean, that almost the whole drone thing becomes almost like not a thing because one, there's already practical stuff about what a drone can carry, how far it can go, a bunch of stuff that's really practically crappy. And with the way they have things now, they could actually have a conveyor, the truck will pull up beside the house and you got to put in a code, the door opens and your stuff's right there. So now there's security too, which they don't really have that with drones flying over the air. I mean, chances are someone's going to start trapping those drones. They're going to steal that stuff.
I'm not saying that. No, you're totally right. Okay. And I'm not saying the technology has caught up to where it should be. Right. But we do have, we know right now that there are development plans inside these companies that are looking for drone deliveries because it saves the company money, and as the world grows and the world gets fatter, money gets more scarce, kind of thing. every company out there is looking, for a way to save. And so if I could buy, a $3,000 drone and not have to pay health, medical, liability, COVID payments, whatever.
Yeah, no, right.
COVID payments.
then it's better for my bottom line as a business owner. Now,
yeah, it makes sense to me.
Now I have to protect some sort of airspace, and I guess I'm playing the devil's advocate here, but I have to protect some airspace. The commercial guys have it from 700 feet to 60,000 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So where am I supposed to fly in that space? I really can't, because the FAA has not allowed. They won't allow that, and I'm not supposed to. But there's uncontrolled space underneath that I should be able to just fly wherever I want. Well, that works fine and dandy until I got somebody, like you were talking about earlier, that's bandit flying, and he wrecks my $3,500 drone or $8,000 drone, whatever the cost is. And, now how do I retrieve that? Now that's costing, extra time, energy, money. So if I could somehow
someone's going to use a potato gun and shoot it down or whatever.
Right. But if I could somehow protect that particular airspace, routes, I will tell you that the military does that already. The military actually has military routes that are charted, and they are specific. And there are several videos on YouTube. You can go look at it. This F-16 is doing nape of the earth, 600 miles an hour down this route, and some 172 or civilian airplane pops out in front of the guy, and it's it's one of those where you see the video, whoosh, they go, whoa, what was that? And they've had accidents, where they've collided, or there was a wing touch or something, and it's kind of like getting hit by a bullet. It's the damage isn't just small; it's catastrophic. So I know those places are out there. They have military operating areas. So this is just a way for the FAA to kind of come in and protect that, but they're being driven by commercially, and the commercial guys really honestly don't. I mean, they're corporate guys. They don't really care about the hobbyists. The hobbyists.
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to point out too is you kind of brought this up when you talked about there's commercial stuff, and I think this is possible. And the reason why I brought up the trucks is because I think it's possible for this drone delivery stuff too. Is that Google owned a company called Loon, and what that was internet delivery using balloons. I think that company was running for 5 or 6 years. It was up for a good long time.
Right.
And a company like Google doesn't just put money into something because it is on a whim. They really thought it was going to fly. Sure. But at the same time, they figured out, hey, it wasn't cost effective and whatever. And I imagine that might happen with drones and stuff. Now, I saw an article the other day about AI-driven electric vehicle passenger things.
Mm-hmm.
That's commercial drone space.
That's true.
If you ask me, right? Yeah. You get up to 700 feet or above or whatever, and that thing's flying along. But those things are significantly big enough, again, that a plane that's 10 pounds or whatever, it ain't gonna do anything to it.
And I totally get what you're saying, and I agree with everything. But think about it in a bigger picture, okay? How lucrative do you think a 1 pound package and a $500, dollar or $5,000 drone are going to be on my bottom line, right? So let's just say, are there hundreds of these things going everywhere and these little bitty packages being delivered? Based on the battery technology, I'm only going to be able to go, 20 yards down the road or whatever.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe I could go 75 miles one way and drop it and then come back. Who knows? But, time-wise, all the safety involved and all that stuff. However, just like what you said, if I built a taxi cab that could hold 4 people in a drone size, which we know is happening right now, right? They're looking at, there's a couple of companies out there that are looking at transport. If I'm trying to get transport done, right, now there's a human factor involved in this whole scheme. What better way to get a jump on it than to do it with a 1 pound package? So if I can secure all of this space from the FAA and say, this is what I'm going to use it for.
So it's a lost leader.
Correct. Because now I actually own the airspace, and putting a human in that airspace in a big, huge drone, 4-place, quadcopter looking thing is not going to be
a big leap from
that is correct. Because now
Yeah,
what I
I
can
agree
do
with
is
that.
shut
That makes
down that
sense.
whole
Yeah.
package thing that's only just, barely costing me, anything and not really benefiting me as
maybe
much.
maybe I'm paying money. Yeah.
Correct. But now that I go through a taxi service, man, you'll see those guys. I mean, that if we're doing
Yeah, that's going to be. I think that's going to be the bigger thing than delivery.
I think so.
Honestly,
I do too. And unfortunately, then now you actually have a human factor involved, where if you have this big drone that's carrying 4 people,
you don't have to worry about people.
Well, but if you have that and you have a hobbyist,
yeah.
right? But you have a hobbyist that touches that or runs into his blades, now you've got lives involved, right? Now you've got human factors. Where right now you don't have
that makes a lot of sense to me. What I was saying,
and I'm gonna preface this by saying this is my personal opinion. I don't have any crystal ball, but just from being in the industry for so many years and watching how this progression works, I mean, just think about it. We used to do the mail with a little Jenny, and fling it out the top of the airplane or drop.
Pete used to do that.
I didn't do it. I'm not that old, but. I'm just saying, we used to carry the mail.
That's what he used to do.
Right. Your buddy and Pete, that's right. And so, as it progressed, it was very difficult to get things put through. But when they made smaller things and pushed them through, then the bigger thing didn't become that big. And that's just, like I said, it's purely rhetoric.
Stepping stone.
It's just, in my eyes, it's a stepping stone. Just like Beta. The laser disc, all that cool stuff that came out that we thought, oh, my gosh, when we were young, oh, my gosh, this laser disc. I mean, Jay will tell you all about that because he's got a whole plethora of those things. But,
I have a whole bunch of them.
He bought one, and he's just like, this is going to be the next big thing. What?
It was a lot smaller, and it was used for data storage instead of.
Yeah, and now all of a sudden, one laser disc that holds like 11 kilobytes in this big movie, and we've got a DVD that's a fraction of the size and 1 cent to make, and it holds 4 megabytes or gigabytes of data, or now they're into the terabytes, right? So it holds 1 terabyte worth of data on this disc. And so I think that this is a way that, once again, the company comes out with technology, they secure the airspace, and then they move on to the bigger, better stuff.
Mm.
So.
Yeah, well, I feel for the kids of today for what they're going to be involved in, and maybe it'll work out. Maybe it'll work out.
So, AZ, Mike, I got a question. So one of the basic tenets of this whole thing is, of course, the remote ID, right?
Correct.
And it's all based upon Wi-Fi connectivity, passing on the information for their 3D altitude, depending on what phase you're in, right? So if you have a newer model drone, you're supposed to, give your 3D, information as to how high, how fast, where you are, where you took off, and where the pilot is standing for the first guy. And that's all sent out via Wi-Fi, right? So that anybody with their phone or an app could go, hey, there's a drone flying there. And they're supposed to be able to pull up that information, see that, oh, there's your number. The pilot's standing over there. Okay, he's legit, I guess, is the thing behind it. Yeah. And so, with doing that, how far are you going to be able to go with Wi-Fi? I mean, gee whiz, my Wi-Fi, if it's raining, it doesn't work in the next room. So now we're going to stick this thing on a drone, fly it up, and supposedly get all this information, and it's going to work seamlessly. I don't know.
Line of sight should be better. You're not going to be flying in the rain, so that's not an issue. Line of sight's better than in your house because you got all those walls and other things that the signal's bouncing off of. So it could actually be. I mean, you basically you're in Wi-Fi frequency using your transmitter, Jay. So if it's reaching your plane with your transmitter, then this stuff is going to work too.
Okay, I'm just, like I said, I just was
good question now.
I just was wondering just how good this is going to work.
And I think ADSB isn't that like in a 900 megahertz range, Mike? ADSB?
It is somewhere up there, yeah.
Yes, 910 or something. I don't remember the exact frequency, and that makes it a better penetrator, right? For this clouds and whatever else, right?
Yep.
But you can do, you could even do high gigahertz level stuff if you had the frequency space, and that could work, but really it's a matter of
I will tell you that one of the companies for the ADSB actually has a wingtip ADSB, and it has a Wi-Fi that connects to the unit in the airplane, so it's sending Wi-Fi from the wing. There's no wire. It's all you just strap it on.
To me, that's fine.
Right. But
right?
what I'm saying is that it can take that information and with that Wi-Fi transmission and put it onto the ADS-B part, and now it'll go, all the way to 36,000 feet.
Right.
But I will tell you that most transmissions anyway are line of sight. And Mike, I know about. Are you familiar with the Cube, the technology that they were talking about? I can't remember who had it, but it was the
No.
Okay. So I was reading an article not too long ago, and it had to do with what I think they call it the Cube. And the Cube is a 5G or greater. It's a 5G cube that's basically like a 2-inch by 2-inch cube. And they can literally they can, I think they were talking about like 500,000, does that sound right? 500,000 users in one little, or more, like a million users in one.
I mean, it could be.
So
depending on what they're doing.
what they do is that the information, and I don't know where this is going because I just read this in one of those magazines, but and only because I have another friend that works for some other company. But what they can do is that they will put those cubes on top of every street light.
Sure.
And they can feed 500,000 users through that one cube at a 5G rate. So if they can do that, if they can put that every street light, which you're only talking less than 200 yards, it's almost like a cell tower, right? Because your cell tower switches. I mean, Mike can tell you when you drive, you get that little hiccup and it switches towers. Now, if you can take a GPS unit, which is micro, I mean, you guys fly it, and you can find a GPS unit that's the size of a postage stamp, and you can you can put the software in to triangulate 3 different cubes, or 4 or 5. You're using the same technology as the GPS satellite, which is looking at 7 satellites. If you can look at 7 cubes, you can triangulate that guy to the nearest foot from a user standpoint.
Right.
So now
that implies that cubes are going to be deployed everywhere, though.
And the technology is there; it's coming, right? 5G is on its way, and from what I understood reading that article, the cube is not that far behind the 5G, and they were talking about it because of actually the technology rolled around because of the mall. Everybody would walk through the mall, and then they wouldn't get very good service. Well, if every store had this cube hanging out front, you would have seamless mall coverage, everywhere.
Like mesh network is
Correct.
basically what you're talking
and that's
about.
exactly where the mesh network, that whole kind of thing. So now you're flying, Jay's talking about going 75 miles. Well, holy crap, dude. If you're on the interstate and they've got one every, half a mile, and it's only a 2x2 cube that they're running 5G network through, where are you not going to be able to go? Right?
That's true.
I mean,
that was one of the.
It is a web of just a spider web that goes out so far. Right now, we're only relying on these single towers that are line of sight.
Well, that was one of the requirements in the preliminary reg when they were talking about it, was that you had to have an internet connection from your drone that was connected directly into it.
Wasn't it also like not necessarily from your drone, but like to use your phone as a station?
Yes.
Weren't they talking about like a base station?
Right. Yeah, and then of course would go from there.
Yeah.
And basically they did away with that because a lot of people complained, and once again, now I have to have a phone to go fly.
Right.
I have to have internet connection to do all that stuff through.
It could be in the middle of the desert.
It's kind of funny you were talking about Google, because Google was upset because they were pushing for that.
Right.
That whole setup. Because once again, it was going to be going through their services.
Right,
yes.
Right.
And so they were very upset that they did away with that requirement to have the continuous continuous connection, feeding that data and stuff. So
and that once again goes back to what we were talking earlier, where big corporations have a reason to jump in here, right? It has nothing to do with flying drones or hobbyists or any of that stuff. It's realizing the potential that there are 4.8 billion. Is it billion? 4.8 billion or million? 4.8 million drone sales just in the U.S.
Wow.
And that's talking from the little guy that you fly in your house to the big one. So just think about that. There's only 80 million people in the U.S., and you have 400 million, whatever it is, whatever number that is. I thought it was in the B, but Maybe it's
I don't know.
maybe it's worldwide. Worldwide, it's like $4 billion. It is a huge industry, massive industry. How do you tap into that? Well, get the government involved, have them make regulations that affect your company.
And that's the other thing. So that I couldn't catch or I didn't see. They give the guidelines that they're going to have this remote ID, but is there a company that's going to produce this, or are they just putting?
I didn't see anything about specific companies, but they did talk about technologies. But again, they also left it open to the idea that you can do it any way you want. You just have to be able to provide
these three pieces of information,
three or four pieces of information about your plane and you flying.
And
that's the way I read it.
The information on the remote ID that I was reading about, I think it had 5 companies that were in the process of developing something.
That may be true too. Yeah, but they're not specifically designating.
Yeah, I'm just worried about it if it's so narrow a definition that only like and let's say it was like Mavic, companies said like you have to use their DGI code in order to do blah 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 blah. That's what I was, or that's why I was saying if they were just
they won't. Hopefully they won't do that.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. If it's open ended, I'm for that because then you just let the market go and somebody's gonna crack that egg and do it cheaply, and that's what I'm all. I'm all for. I can comply with all this stuff. I just don't want it to have to cost me, another, $10,000 worth of equipment in order to fly my.
It shouldn't, because once again, if I'm looking how to tap into that $4 billion industry or whatever it is, I'm not gonna set my pricing to where 4.4 billion people can't afford it, right? Or 4 billion drones. I'm going to put it at a price point.
Well, yes and no, because once again, if you're Google and you're looking more for commercial stuff, you can care less about the hobbyists.
Yeah, but that commercial stuff is not going to produce the amount of money that a hobbyist would.
Once again, it just depends. You got to look at what market they're looking at.
All right. Let's talk about the computers, because that's a good relation, or what's the word I'm looking for? It's a comparison. Yeah, it's a good comparison, because anybody that knows anything about home computers goes all the way back before Apple and Microsoft. They knew that Hewlett-Packard and IBM were the two big guys, and what did they tell him? Home computers will never work.
I know, right?
They gave him that info. Hewlett-Packard gave him all that stuff because they were like, "You're an idiot. Who is going to have a home computer?" The computer world is in the corporate world on these massive computers that are going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars. Yeah, but that's a sale that Hewlett-Packard was looking at hundreds of millions of dollars for these number crunching machines. That's where the money is. And yeah, we see who's on the top of that totem pole. Those two guys.
Right. No, I'm not denying
wealthiest guys in the world all happen to be computer.
I'm just saying that once again, if the government's coming in and regulating, these two companies are the only two that get to put this information out, or they come up with the unit that everybody's going to use. And of course,
I see what you're saying.
Big bulky thing that
So
then you have a monopoly.
Right. And like I said, I think there's 5 companies that have actually thrown their names in the hat to the FAA saying we're designated that we will actually put the developmental money in to look at remote ID. So are all 5 of them going to come up with it? Probably not, because
I don't know. I just want to have a free market. Once again, let the free market reign.
Agreed.
And you'll always get a better, cheaper product.
Right.
If you have competition and and you just let people go. You give them the outlines of what they're supposed to do, and you let them go, and then you'll get a product that you want.
Well, and once again, going back to the computer thing, here those two guys, two computers, the Apple and the Windows, and you develop that, and then overnight, all of a sudden you've got 4. I mean, you can't go into a store where there's not 15 different manufacturers, people I haven't even heard of, that are creating computers. Do they have all the Intel stuff and the Microsoft stuff in it? Yes, they do. But, still, I've never heard of Youngway, Wheelwo, whatever the name is that, yet it's on the computer. It's on sale for $298, and it's supposed to be some fast machine. Dell, holy crap, that dude was in a dorm room making it out of his garage. I'm just saying that having 5 people jump into it, once the money has been spent for the development, that's really where the cost is, right? The cost is that initial upfront cost to develop. Research and development is very costly. Once I develop it, then what I look at is what did Mike develop, right? Or your laser disc. You put all that energy into making this big, huge disc with this little bitty, movie on it, and my company looked at it and went, no way, I can do way better than that. I can make them smaller and fatter and faster, and I can create, and then bam, that we totally went off the rails from the laser disc right to the CD-ROM. And I think from a remote ID standpoint, you may see the same thing, especially because it's such a huge industry. And I apologize for that. I should have had that number in front of me. I remember, I was reading it, and I know it's 4.2 something, either million or billion. I think it's in the B worldwide. And you guys can correct me or whatever. I'm more than willing to hear what it is. But when you're looking at that type of technology, these big companies are diving into that. They're trying to get a piece of that, and you're going to.
Well,
see
the upside here is
that
that it's on YouTube now. So
Correct.
you said it. It's true.
Oh yeah, there you go. It is on YouTube.
That's
There's
true.
4 billion people. Or 4 billion.
Yeah,
it's a big number though. I was really shocked, and the reason that I was shocked is because of what we were reading about, where they were talking about manufacturers have to comply with all this, and I'm thinking, how do you get? Even if it was just a million, right? 400 million is more than people that are in the U.S. And if you did worldwide at 4 billion, holy smokes. That's one for every person. So they're obviously like guys like me that own 40 or 50 of these things. I'm not just.
So there's another component here that we're not really talking about. This is only driven on the U.S. side.
That's true.
It's like you don't.
That's true.
I don't know. I don't think the EU is following this to this level. Now they may.
Yeah.
Or they may already be doing that, and like, who's that guy, Jay, that you like, XJet? Is that guy that you like?
Over in
he may have more information about that stuff. I think he's got great information that comes out of his channel. But this is only here, so let's assume for a second that it's only in the U.S. just for conversation. Now you have manufacturers that are outside the U.S. They can manufacture whatever the hell they want. The question is the U.S. going to stop all that the import of that stuff specifically and say, no, you can't do it because it doesn't meet it? I don't know if that happens. I don't know if they can do that. I don't know.
Well, I mean, they could. I guess they could.
Well, I mean, I think it's possible, but would they? Right? Would they actually do that, or would they be able to police that, or how's that going to work? And again, we're back to implementation as an issue.
Well, I know one thing. We'll find out in the next 3 years. Just how.
There you go.
I have a feeling that a lot of RC manufacturers are going to probably be not stymied, but the new products that are going to get released are going to kind of shrink for a while.
Right.
Now, one part of the market I think is going to boom, the sub 250 grams.
I agree with that.
I think there's going to be more planes, drones, whatever coming out that have super features, because that's going to be where the free market's going to be, right? Because there's no restrictions on those things.
Right.
And so they're going to be packing all sorts of features into these models that you've never would have been able to dream of.
Well, the amazing part about that too is, technology is going to get right now the sub 250 you can hold in the palm of your hand. But I can tell you that I've seen some quadcopter style frames that are bigger than what you can hold in your hand, right? Yet they weigh.
You mean like,
nothing.
but they're less than 250.
Yeah, they're way less than 250, or they're right at 250, and they are double or triple. So I think as technology goes along, you're going to see new products,
increased size at the reduced
strength.
weight.
You'll see some of that stuff where they redo the weave, or they do a stronger, bond, or they do something that makes it a bigger, but still less than 250. So I agree with Jay, and honestly, unfortunately, our time is up, but honestly, I think while we're at the electric festivals, this would be a good kind of prod at the Horizon guys if they're there, because that's a big, they own, a large chunk of the RC market. So
I think it might be interesting too if we can get just interview regular people, see how they feel about it. Like just get the general opinions.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, nobody really cares about what I think about it. Maybe other people are.
Yeah, what do we know? We're just three eggheads that like to go fly RC.
That's right.
Hey, listen, our listeners, please, put some stuff in some comments out there, on our YouTube page. You guys should start talking this up, because it's going to affect all of us very soon, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
And, we'd be glad to hear how it's affecting you or what you're thinking about it. So,
yeah.
You can give us a call, 830-444-4943. That's our hotline. Or you can reach us at parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com. or once again on our YouTube channel. You can just jump on there and give us a comment, leave us a comment, either way. And we have a Facebook page of Park Flyer Podcast Listeners Group.
Yep.
I think I just approved like 4 more people to come in, and I get these
Yay.
approvals, and they're like, hey, we want to join your group, and so I got 4 or 5 more of them just yesterday. So our group is growing, and we're reaching out. We are worldwide as far as our podcast goes. We've got listeners all over the world. So chime in, give us a ring, let us know. Reach out to our sponsors at rcbatteriesusa.com and pick up a power battery, or reach out to Eric over at 3D Aero Ventures and find yourself some plans. Guys, it is just, I'm excited to see you guys got your itineraries all figured out and you're coming to Arizona, and I can't be more happy.
Yeah, this is going to be great.
So it'll be fun. But, yeah, man, our hour went fast, and this is a topic we could probably spend hours.
Yeah, we're gonna have to talk some more about this, because I'm looking at my notes, and there's 2 or 3 things that I didn't even
come up with.
Bring up.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think we just need to, as we look at this, bring up some stuff and talk about it again. Because,
and I like Mike's idea that we can talk to a couple of people and see how they feel about it, because you never know. I mean, they may have read something totally different.
Right.
The way I read the regulations.
After looking at the document, I could believe that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't make mistakes, so I don't completely understand what you're saying, but yeah.
We can't all be like you, Mike. What can I say?
It's true.
I want to be like Mike. Anyway, so. Well, I'm excited for you guys to come out. We'll, if you're coming to the Arizona Electric Festival, we hope to see you there. Please look us up. We'll be all decked out in our new shirts, and you can't miss us. We're usually right up front. We have our own table there. Shannon has been just phenomenal with us. We've been there, many, many years now, and then we're kind of part of the as Park Flyer, we're a park bench, so we're kind of there. We parked ourselves. We've been a part of it, and we're all excited about it.
We're the Park Bench podcast.
It's the Park Bench podcast. There you go. And actually, that's on our card.
Chairs.
Yeah. So hopefully you'll make it out. It's going to be a great time, and we are going to participate in the night fly again this year. So we'll see what kind of shenanigans Jay is bringing with him. I'll
try to remember to bring all my parts.
Yes, there you go. And
that's right.
Yeah. Yeah, start now, man. Get those things in there. You got about a week left.
Oh, my Lord. Yeah.
Let's see, dates. It's basically Friday,
12th,
Saturday,
14th?
Sunday. So the 12th, 13th, and 14th. Yep, 12th, 13th, and 14th. See if you can break away from your better half on the Valentine's Day, which is on the 14th. Maybe you can just come with us for 2 days and then be back for that. But I actually promised some really impressive stuff after the fact, so she let me out first week. So
nice. Although I hope she comes like she did last time.
She will.
During the night fly, because I think that it is pretty cool flying at night. I mean, it freaks me out. I really struggle doing it, but it is pretty cool to do it.
It is fun.
Aside when Jay turns off the lights. Hey, the lights are off. Oh, you know where the plane is?
Yeah.
I know what you got to talk about.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, maybe this year there'll be a full moon. You won't have to worry about it. You can still see
Won't have to worry
so,
about it.
Yeah.
Could be.
Well, I know
it's
Big Mike.
It's full moons right now, so I doubt it.
Yeah.
But
Big Mike took a liking to my wife, man. He just could not get enough. He just was chatting her up all over the place. So I'm sure he'll ask me if she's coming out. But I think she is. She talked about it, kind of coming out.
Well, he's got some interesting stuff coming too, I imagine.
He does.
So,
he's got a few things I've seen coming out, so we'll be excited to see. I think he's going for the most realistic and accurate airplane this year.
Cool.
He's put a lot of energy and effort into doing some of the stuff he's done. So,
I'm going to fly it this time. I'm not going to give it to you, Mike. I'm going to fly it.
Okay, well, there you go. It's a big airplane, so just be careful. Let's see.
Go slow.
Go slow. Yeah, that thing doesn't like to go slow. Mike can prove it. I think they're bringing his big airliner out too, which I think you got to fly last time
I did
in a panic. So,
well,
his panic, not yours.
We took care of it. We took care of it.
You got it on the ground, so it's good news.
All was good.
All was good. Don't panic. Just don't.
He wasn't a Frank.
He wasn't a Frank.
He was not a Frank. That's right.
Although,
he managed that really
I
well.
think that would be hilarious to actually see somebody who crashed that went over there and started just jumping up and down on their airplane.
Railing on it?
Swear.
I got it. I don't have it.
It makes for great video, but it makes everybody around you feel bad.
Yes,
like,
it does.
Great video is what I meant, not radio.
Great video. Well, we all got a face for radio. Good radio, too. So, well, thanks for joining us tonight, or this morning, I guess. It comes out on Tuesday mornings. But thanks for joining us on this episode of the Park Flyer Podcast. Reach out to us at theparkflyerpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know what you think of the new FAA rules. We're always willing to listen to to hear from our listeners. We'll listen to you, too. So hopefully send us something there. Anything on the horizon, guys? Next week? We'll see you next week?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, Michael here in Arizona.
Jay from the hills of Texas.
And AK Mike in Texas.
That's right. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Let's fly.
You have been listening to the Park Flyer Podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to your next visit. Please give our show a star rating and review, and feel free to email us your questions, topics, or suggestions to parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com.